Hello, and welcome to the Full-Time Creator Podcast, where you'll get wisdom, tips, and inspiration from creators building their dream businesses. I'm your host, Zach Swinehart, and I'm here today with Derek Ashauer. Hello, Derek.
Hello, welcome. Thanks so much.
So tell us about your business. As I understand it, you are mid-transition from a WordPress agency into a product-based WordPress business. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, trying to do something that's I'm a little bit more passionate about after doing agency work for 16 years now on my own. It's kind of run its due course, I feel like, both personally and professionally. It's just kind of the amount of people contacting me for new stuff has kind of decreased. So it's naturally leading in that direction to kind of start something new. And so I'm trying to, I find myself more excited to wake up and build my own thing instead of something for others right now. So so working on that transition.
And your agency, it sounds like you've been solo, not like running a team kind of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's solo, whether you want to call that an agency or not. I have white label SEO team. My wife is also, part of my quote unquote team, but she's a UI UX person, but then I just turn and say, hey, does this look good? That's what she is as part of my team, stuff like that. But for the most part, it is just myself.
Okay. And what is your, so I guess for today, we can probably focus on I think the main thing that it'll be interesting to explore is the transition phase that you're in now, and then the product business. So it's WP Sunshine, right?
Yeah.
Is that the business?
That's the overall brand that I've decided to kind of build everything, my WordPress plugins under. Yeah.
Okay. So WP Sunshine is your like plugin suite. And it sounds like, not to get ahead of the scope of the interview, but it sounds like the kind of transition that you're making is that, as I understand, you started WP Sunshine with your first plugin being that photographer-oriented plugin.
Yeah. So I started.
Yeah, go ahead.
I started with Sunshine Photo Kart as my first plugin. I didn't really consider making a suite of stuff. When I kind of was like, I want to make this into a business and not just have one thing. I kind of wanted to diversify what I was making, both for various reasons. If one area is not doing as well, other ones could pick up the other pace, but also in scale. Sunshine Photo Kart is a complete e-commerce platform plugin like WooCommerce or something like that, but just for photographers, because they have very different needs and structures than someone selling t-shirts. So that's why I built it from the ground up. I started it 10 years ago when WooCommerce didn't even exist. So that's why I started it, from scratch. I think Jigo Shop was the only e-commerce WordPress plugin at the time.
Wow.
So that idea of doing that just didn't exist. So that's why I started it and made it its own ecosystem. But the other reason why I wanted to build a whole suite of things is because I want to build things that isn't a 25 megabyte download. That is, could maybe be a few files that solves a more specific niche solution. So it's easier to maintain. Even if it costs less, it's easier to maintain and market and sell, and have, several of those little, small things along with a really large one to go in tandem with it.
That makes sense. And for the direction you're going, because obviously your first one was serving photographers, who is your audience, if you've figured it out yet, for the direction you're moving towards with your newer releases?
It's still as I've come up with ideas. Honestly, the small plugins that I've created thus far have been, the ideas I get are when I was making something for a client and then was like, oh, I could turn that into a product. So a lot of the stuff that I'm finding that I'm making is often going to be for people who are making websites for clients because it's solving a problem that I had in that moment. That's kind of where, yeah.
Okay. I'm always curious about creating a business for developers, because it seems like developers would be really challenging customers for things like plugins, because they would always just say, well, I could just make this myself. What's your experience been in that capacity?
Well, I mean, and this goes to a lot larger debate that we don't need to have here, but what is a developer? Someone making websites does not necessarily have to be a developer. There's a lot of people, especially in the WordPress space, who can barely write a line of code, but they call themselves a WordPress developer. Right. But what they are is they make websites for clients, whatever term you want to call it. And there's nothing wrong with that. They make clients for websites, or make websites for clients. And so they need tools to do that, whether it's something like, my confetti plugin, which is a fun little thing that shows a confetti effect after a form or e-commerce, conversion, stuff like that, which is a nice, fun little plugin. A lot of people like it. Or another one that I'm thinking of, I'm validating the idea right now, called Conversion Bridge, which makes it really easy to connect a lot of the new privacy-focused analytics platforms, Fathom, Plausible, Simple Analytics, stuff like that, to any WordPress plugin that's on there, whether it's Gravity Forms, WooCommerce, Give WordPress, stuff like that, in a single plugin. So it makes it easy regardless of which, what you're doing for that specific client, whether you're making an e-commerce site or just doing one with a form. You have one plugin that you've bought to use across all your client sites. So, so it is, I'm finding that I'm making solutions for people like myself,
Right.
that I'm going towards that route, where when I created Sunshine Photo Kart, that was a solution for my partner at the time, who was a photographer doing weddings and portraits. And I was like, oh, I could build something for you real quick and easy. Give me 6 weeks. And of course, as we all know, that turned 6 months later, that I actually
Yeah.
had something worthwhile. And then, I kept going with that, but it wasn't something that I was personally passionate about, because I'm not a photographer. So growing it, doing that, I've had it for 10 years and it's still not something I can live off of full
Mm.
time. I have to come up with other things because I've been so afraid and fearful of marketing it and pushing it, because it's not natural for me to dip my toe into the photography space.
Mm.
Go on photography podcasts and all that kind of stuff. It's a little rough. But it's something, as I'm talking with other people, and learning about, there's angles that I can come in using my expertise on these things. And so I'm slowly making that transition and feeling more comfortable doing podcasts like this, to feel more comfortable in talking about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, why it's beneficial, and
Nice.
coming at it from an angle of, my photography solution is great because, this is an important thing that most photographers don't think about: how to turn a $500 sale of their photos to a client to $1,000 thing. Here's how you can do it using my software, and not worry about shutter speed and, angle and lighting and stuff like that, because I know nothing about that, but come at it
Yeah.
from the angle that I do understand.
Yeah. And I think that there's some nice differentiation that happens there for you as the person teaching about that too. Like, I think you see it in these creator oriented podcasts a lot, where there will be certain lawyers or accountants who their whole thing is like how to not get sued as a creator, or how to
Yeah.
handle your finances as a solo creator. If you were listening to some plugin developer podcast and there was somebody on talking about the specific accounting strategies plugin developers need to think about, like,
Yeah.
it's a good opportunity to have a hook, because there aren't so many accountants who are specializing that way. And similarly, there probably
Yeah.
aren't too many web dev people specializing in how to build your photography tech stack kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that'll be interesting to see how you go there with your more WordPress assembler oriented stuff, like the confetti plugin and the I'm spacing the name, sorry, right now,
Conversion
the
bridge.
conversion bridge. Thank you.
Yeah.
How are you marketing those products currently?
Currently, it's mostly just doing social media stuff, to be honest. I notice a spike when it makes sense to mention the confetti plugin or something like that. I'll drop a little thing in there, reminder, and then within a couple days, I'll see a little bit of a spike of traffic, and
Hmm.
then a few sales as it probably is a result of that. The confetti one's a little unique because it's not something that people seek out. It's they don't know about it until they see it, and then they go, "Oh, yeah, that's a cool idea." So
Yeah,
they're
I
not
could think of
specifically
places
searching
where I
like,
could use it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. They're not specifically searching, I want a confetti effect for
Yeah.
my gravity forms thing. It's not really what anyone's doing. So that one's a unique kind of situation where, yeah, staying in front of people, letting people know about it, then other people they'll hopefully, catch it soon. People, oh, I saw that on that one site, and then maybe they search for it, because they saw it on another site, stuff like that. But yeah, getting more traction on it is one way to do it. Yeah.
So in your mind, if you're thinking about creators, so like, let's say somebody has a course that they sell, or a SaaS tool that they sell, or
Mhm.
a coaching program. In each of these three instances, where do you think the best place to have confetti fly out is? Like the best stage of the journey?
Usually it's somewhere like after a conversion. Someone signed up for the email newsletter. Hey, here's a little,
Mm,
confetti thing, something like that. They've purchased the course. Hey, here's a little confetti to celebrate. People doing courses. I know one integrations I like doing was Lifter LMS, one of those, so that every time, while they're taking the course, they complete the quiz and they pass it. Hey, a little fun confetti effect, things like that.
nice.
So it just makes your course, it could make your course stand out a little bit, make them people a little bit more excited, happy to take that class, stuff
Yeah,
like, things like
dopamine
that.
hit. It's
Yeah,
nice.
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. So right now you are not full-time in the creator business. You're splitting between agency and creator work, right?
Um, yes. Yeah.
What's your like milestone? I don't know if it's an income milestone or whatever, but what's your spectrum for how you will decide when you're going to turn away all your agency work and just work on your plugins?
Yeah, it's purely income. I have a number in mind of what I want to be making every month. And when my products are making that much, that's when I will tell clients I'm out. um, I'm not going to do it. There might be some that that I've over the years, you enjoy working with them. You don't mind. There's always some hard things to turn away when you're
Yeah.
reselling hosting and you literally do nothing. Why would I stop that income? It's
Hmm.
easy enough. But yeah, it's basically an income thing, purely financial reason why I would make that switch.
So do you plan to reduce, like to kind of as your income from plugin scales up
Mhm.
to slowly scale down, or are you going to go keeping everything as it is until you hit a threshold and then hard stop?
This is one area where I think I have a I'm very happy for the unique advantage that I have right now. Honestly, my agency work has basically gone to zero. New agency work has dipped.
Mm,
And I could dive into reasons why and all that kind of stuff if you want, but let's just say it's basically down to zero. And then my product work it's about half of what I want it to be right now. A little bit less than half, maybe 40% of where I want it to be. Um, but I'm married to someone who makes really good money. And so I'll be perfectly blunt that, and she's very supportive and wanting me to take on this challenge of trying to build up my product stuff. So having someone who's supportive, both personally and financially, where if I made $0, we would still be fine to cover our bills. So I do have that unique advantage where I know there's a lot of people out there who are in their early 20s and stuff like that, trying to start the grind, don't yet have to do anything. But I know someone myself in my 40s who has a family between the two of us, my wife and I, we have 4 kids, um, and a house and dog, the whole spiel. But knowing that someone could do that, could take care of all that for a little while is a unique advantage that I have right now, to be perfectly blunt.
yeah, that makes sense. With how your time is now, like you're solo in the product business as well, right?
Yeah.
So how do you? I don't know if you track all your time. I'm a big nerd about tracking all my time.
Yeah.
Do you know how your time breaks down between, like, if you imagine the pie chart, what
Yeah.
percentage of your time you spend right now on customer support versus like product development versus
Mhm.
marketing, that kind of thing? Do you have an idea of how that breaks down?
Well, one of the situations I'm at is Sunshine Photo Kart is probably my biggest source of support tickets, but it's also been around for 10 years. So at this point, I've developed good documentation and all this kind of stuff that most people are able to answer their questions by themselves. I only
Mm,
get a handful of support questions a week at this point.
that's great.
So yeah, there's not really too many. The other advantage of building really small niche products like the confetti one is I get one support ticket every 3 months
Yeah,
because it does its thing and there's not much complication to it.
yeah,
And why I like the idea of a friend of mine, Martin, he calls them boring businesses, or maybe a better idea is simple businesses
yeah,
of making very simple products, because then maybe you're only making $20 a sale or $15 a sale or something like that, but there's no overhead on any of it. It's just so basic. So there's different ways that you could come at a business, and it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to be, making a big product, but then maybe has a lot of support, a lot of things going on to it, where you're actually spending a lot of time? I'd rather, personally, I'm at the point where I'm going to try to make a lot of smaller scale things that are easy to develop, easy to build, and then easy to support, where there's only needs 10 support articles. Maybe
yeah,
that's all it needs because it's so simple and
yeah. There's not
straightforward.
going to be a lot of scope creep for a confetti
Exactly.
plugin. Yeah.
Exactly. Where, my photography one, for a while you get, oh, I wanted to do this unique thing. I want to do this unique thing because it's such a big comprehensive thing. There's so many different ways that photographers want to approach it that it has a lot of different people who can ask certain questions. But basically, but to answer your original question, how much time do I do on stuff? Support is pretty minimal at this point because again, a lot of documentation has been written, a lot of stuff. So I, spend a lot of upfront time doing that, and over time answering people's questions and writing the documentation article and then sending the URL, knowing that that's going to answer the next 10 people who have the same question. Um, but I would say most of my time right now, for the last year and a half, has been purely development. Because I'm working on a whole new version. I created Sunshine Photo Kart 3 from the ground up. So it's been a year and a half process. So it's been almost all development, in terms of that. But now it's going to switch to almost all marketing.
Mm.
That's what all my time is. I'm literally right now at this phase going to be making that switch. And, as part of my journey of learning how to really do this and being marketing first, that everything has a marketing strategy behind everything that I build, code, and plan and make. And that I have that marketing strategy in place first. Because as a developer, it's hard. I've fallen back to, it's easy to just lean back and do the development stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's what you know and trust and believe in. And someone I commented in our mastermind group the other day is that as developers, we like doing development because we get instant feedback. I wrote this line of code. Did it work? Yes or no? I know that instant. With marketing, I need to write 20 articles. I need to, do these link building efforts. I need to, go on podcasts, do all this kind of stuff, and then wait a year maybe and see if it has any return. So as a developer, especially, it's hard to do that, but it's definitely something that has to happen. So I'm actually excited. Doing podcasts like this is kind of nerve-wracking when I've done a couple of them now. So
I
my
was going to
third or
say,
fourth one.
for me, it's less the instant feedback, though it is nice. For me, it's more just, it's fucking scary. Like you have the opportunity for rejection. You're on the spot. You feel like everything could get burned down if you do it wrong. Whereas dev, you push your little thing to staging and you're like, oh, no, it doesn't work. I'll just make my new bug fix, push that. It's very comfy safe. At least for me, that's the one.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, you just delete this podcast from your hard drive and it never sees the light of day.
Yeah, there you go.
So, that's the worst case that happens, honestly. I've fumbled on many podcasts. I've made just like, someone asked me what my stack was. And I was like, I use the Atom editor was my response. And I just like blanked and didn't know how to answer it. Oh, well, who cares? Who cares?
So you mentioned that you're going to be switching into like a hard marketing place. Is this for the photo one or for things in general, like kind of across the board?
It's going to be for the Photocard one because, again, I've been working on that one for a year and a half, and it's finally a whole new version from scratch. So that's going to be my focus now. But it's also balancing things. I'm trying to decide where to put my energy. So, you asked that question, where do I put in my energy? And I had the idea for the Conversion Bridge plugin, which, connects a lot of analytics platforms with a lot of WordPress plugins, makes it really easy to track conversions regardless. So it's great for agencies and stuff like that. It will be great for agencies, but I'm still kind of validating that idea. So I've had the thought, do I spend time building that out? Or do I, have this one that's done and focus on the marketing? Do I start a new product? It depends on what hour of the day you ask me, still at this moment. But I think I've kind of committed at the moment to focus on Sunshine Photo Kart because I'm still validating the idea. I'm still throwing it out on Twitter. Hey, do you guys think this is an idea? Is this something you would buy for the Conversion Bridge thing? I have foundations of it coded just to validate how hard it would be to code. Spent like half a day doing that. Being like, okay, I think I got the foundations. I think this will take me about a week maybe to, fine tune it, get it all working. Is it worth that week to build it? But in the long run, as my wife said, she was like, that's a week. That's not that big of a deal. Just build it, see what happens. It's not the end of the deal. If it was going to take me 6 months, then yeah, I'd probably have to spend a lot more time validating an idea. But again, that's one great thing about a smaller plugin is that you could just build it, the whole thing, and throw it out there as a way to validate things.
So how does because presumably your existing audience, if you were to look at what customers you have access to, presumably
Mhm.
the vast majority of your existing customers would be in the photo space and thus not
Yeah,
prospective customers for this new one. Is that
yeah.
right?
Yeah, so they wouldn't cross at all. So that's, again, one challenge is I got into this photography space because it was from my former partner who was a photographer, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go, but I have this big beast of a product that's been around for 10 years. So I'm not just going to trash it.
Yeah.
At least, but I am, my ideas and my energy and, things that I come up with are more towards solving my own problems.
Yeah. I guess the challenge is that if you market one, you're not necessarily marketing the other. I'm curious
Correct.
what the main next goal is for you, because I think that if you were to say, okay, I want to get as much dollars in the door as possible
Hmm.
ASAP, probably the
Yeah.
photo one would be the easier way to generate the revenue since it's
Yeah.
got customers and product. But if it's to create something sustainable you want to market long term, maybe it wouldn't
Mhm.
fit. What is your next big step, important goal that you're targeting?
Yeah. So it is Sunshine Photo Kart. It's my biggest thing. Like you said, it has the biggest chance of helping me get to my monthly income that I want to get to.
Mm,
Um, but I still like the idea of diversification. I've had that since I started working for myself. When I started, I accidentally started my freelance agency, whatever you want to call it, solopreneur, making websites for clients thing. I never really intended to do it. I just was doing it on the side. All of a sudden, had a bunch of clients, quit my job, and was doing that for 16 years. It just happened. So I never really had a plan. This is, uh, so yeah, my plan is to focus on that. But I like diversification. So when I was doing that, I always had in my mind that this could just disappear one day. Maybe a new competitor comes into that space and all the photographers go to that one thing, and then my whole business is gone. So that's why I like the idea of when I was doing the agency stuff, I had the idea of I wanted my own drop shipping e-commerce site was one thing that I wanted to do. And then also a product was another thing to kind of mix things up so that I never had my eggs in one single basket.
mm,
Does it make things harder? Yes, it definitely does. It stretches you more thin um, of what you can do. Is that the right approach? I I don't know. It's an approach. It's let me survive for 16 years working on my own by myself. Where I spent before I was probably 75%, client work and 25% product. And I've had that product for 10 years and client work for 16. And it's made me enough money for that many years. Have Is either of them the best they could be? No. My agency or my client work, I could have focused on them more instead of coding. And my coding could have been better if I would have focused on marketing. But each one of those, and as I make this transition, I mentioned earlier, I'm wanting to target something that when I wake up in the morning, I'm excited to work on it. And I've kind of identified that I'm more excited to work on something that is my own and why I want to move away from building things for clients and build something for myself and focus more on the products. And why, if I've been able to balance doing agency and a product, well, now I'm going to have a big product and then some small things as my 80/20 rule, my one
yeah.
big product and then maybe 20% in this other space and try some little things. It's an area to experiment. What type of product works? What type of marketing? I could even try different. Does this type of marketing work in general? If it works, then apply it to my bigger product, things like that. So even though they're totally different things, yeah, my big email list of photographers, I'm not going to sell them Conversion Bridge. It's simply not going to happen.
How many customers do you have versus non-customers on your photographer oriented list?
Um, I don't even have the numbers on that top of my head. I think there's probably about 4 to 5,000 people on my email list. I'd say about 2,000 of them. I think about 2,000 using the plugin. It's a freemium plugin, so there's about 2,000 using it, and about 600 paid.
And it's a one-time payment or a recurring?
No, it's a recurring annual.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like the easy money if you're trying to make new products would just be make another product for those people to buy since you have a list of customers.
Yeah, it is one of those things. And like I said, I'm more inspired because I'm solving my own problems. So when it's a niche that you don't know,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I
it's
guess
harder.
that's true too.
I don't know what a photographer needs when they're going out to do a shoot. Maybe there's some software solution. I don't have, I'm not with that partner anymore that I was when I made the product. So I don't have her being in my ear to tell me this is a good idea. This is a good idea. And now on my own. So there's ideas that I've had of partnering with someone, bringing on someone who is a photographer and make them part of it, part of the business in some way, or adding them, paying them as a consultant and things like that, ideas. But there's this balance of my plugin doesn't make me enough to survive. How could I pay someone else to do that as well? So it's still this weird thing, and why I'm in a transition of this makes me a certain amount of money every month, but really my product growth is going to come from solving my own problems, scratching my own itch
Hmm.
as I grow to do things. And that'll just be my thing. But I don't know. I'm trying all the things and we're going to see. I'm in a transition phase. I don't have the answers to it. I don't know yet. I'm just trying it all.
So what do you see, like you mentioned that you're going into this marketing phase, what do you see as your next big things you're going to try in the marketing department, and where do you see the potential challenges coming up and stuff?
Photographers in general, for that one is going to be diving into where they exist, not where I exist. So if I'm on Twitter, I'm around a bunch of other WordPress developers. A lot of photographers don't use Twitter very much. They're more on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. So building a community on Facebook to get with other photographers, to get them talking. And it could be, hey, I'm just going to set this group. I'm going to stand up here and moderate it, but you all can join and talk amongst yourselves and but make that space available. Reaching out, doing podcasts that are photography related podcasts, and talking about things like that as I get more comfortable doing them, like I am here. But just trying to jump into their space more. But of course, there's the usual writing articles, doing, SEO work, but focusing on it from the point of view that I do have expertise on, where photographers maybe are lacking, such
Mm.
as how to increase your sales from $500 to $1,000 by having a better e-commerce system that you're using, which I believe Sunshine Photo Kart can absolutely do that. That's how you can grow your photography business. So a lot of my marketing on my site, on the new version of the site, when the new version of Sunshine Photo Kart comes out, is all about growth, building your business, make more sales. Because a lot of other platforms, my competitors are like, it looks pretty,
Mm.
which a lot of photographers,
Yeah.
they're artistic people, but I want to kind of just separate myself and say, I'm here to make you money, grow your business,
Yeah.
and kind of come at them from the angle that I have expertise on, from client work, of knowing how to build a site that converts, what is important, good usability, UI, things like that. Good features, automated email marketing to help them, how to use that in their business and things like that.
I have an idea if you're interested.
I'm always open to ideas.
Given that you have a list of photographers who are customers, and given that your whole hook is kind of this business aspect of photography, you could very well host your own podcast that is essentially business skills for photographers, and you could interview the photographers on your email list who are customers, and those would double as customer interviews, which would give you more information about the successes and challenges and all these things of your target customer. And I don't
That
know,
is
anyway.
actually, yeah, it's absolutely one of the ideas that I do have. Obviously, I have to fix the lighting and
Yeah.
other things and get a more professional setup. But absolutely, it's as I've been researching it, that's one of the ideas I had, was trying to set up Zoom calls and other kind of stuff with customers, because it's also a great way to you're a customer. What has worked about my
Yeah.
product? What hasn't worked? Great. While you're on here, can you give me a video testimonial that I can use on my website? And then also use it as what's your best advice? And then turn it into a podcast. I do one thing that turns into 3 or 4 different marketing channels
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
can use
Cool.
to grow things.
So I went deep there because I wanted to nerd out on that one for a minute. Let me get myself back to my normal questions. For you, the listener, we were talking before, and I was saying how I have a really hard time not going deep, and how the heck am I ever going to do a 20 to 30-minute podcast? I don't know.
Yeah.
So back to the list of things I wrote down that I knew I would not be able to hit all of them. I am curious, if you look at where you are now, like you do have a plugin business with some sales and stuff. Even if you're not where you want to be yet, you're still in a pretty dang good place. You've got some good momentum and you're moving in that direction. What do you think the number one most important thing is that you did well to get where you are now?
I would say sticking to it. Um,
Mm,
there's just, just keeping going with it and not just walking away. Um, I think that's the best thing I could say that I do
yeah,
that. Like I said,
it's a
I've
great
had the
tip.
Sunshine Photo Kart thing for 10 years. It doesn't make me enough, but it's also, after 10 years, maybe it's not making me enough to live off of that one product, but it's given me the foundation to try to become product first to get away from there. If I would have given up on this after, oh my gosh, it's only making me $1,000 a month, after 3 years, I'm still, whatever, just giving up, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, where
Mm,
I'm finally ready to start doing this and make the more focused effort to try and turn into that. I would have had to start from scratch instead of trying to start from 40%.
yeah.
So, and it's weird how little things turn into bigger things. So, like I did client work. Well, that one client, I decided I'm just going to throw on, I was working on their website. It was an e-commerce website. I had just bought something from another e-commerce website for my own things. They had a confetti effect when the thing purchased. Like, oh, that's pretty cool. I should add that to this client site. Well, then within the coming months, I was like, I need to start productizing some things. Oh, what have I done for a client that could be a product? Well, I did that one silly confetti thing. Well, I can make that into a product. It only took me 2 days to turn it into a product. And, it's been around for about a year and a half. It's made me several $1,000s. It's not anything that's going to be life changing, but it's enough to take my family on a great vacation every year.
And
But it
that's,
also,
yeah, go ahead.
but what I was going to say is all the coding for that has directly led into Conversion Bridge.
Mm,
It's literally the exact same code. It's just a line of JavaScript that outputs at a conversion moment to show confetti. Well, guess what? Conversion tracking is. It's a line of JavaScript code that outputs when a conversion tracking happens. It's darn near the exact same thing, but all of a sudden I now have this product that could be wildly available to a massive audience and could be my flagship product.
yeah.
So just continually to create things and keep going on things has just led me to come up with new ideas and ways to make money off of it.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious for the confetti one, like, is it a freemium thing and the leads are essentially coming from the WordPress plugin repository, or how are
To
your
be honest,
customers finding you?
it's such a side thing. I haven't really looked into it
Mm,
to be too honest. I don't know. It is a freemium plugin, so there's a free version which actually has more installs than my Photocard plugin because that's so niche that not many people install it. Um, but yeah, so it is a freemium version. So there's some ads in there to upgrade. You get some
mhm,
customize the effects, the colors, the timing of it, the position of it, and it automatically integrates with various plugins like Lifter LMS and Give WP, WooCommerce, and all that kind of stuff.
mm.
So,
Nice.
so that's what the paid version is. You get a free one, you can just throw on somewhere, and then the paid one just simplifies things.
Cool.
But
So
yeah, so yeah,
yeah, go ahead if you had something to add.
no, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Okay. um, to help me bring it to a close, because I'm looking at the time and I'm like, oh no, I went over what I wanted to.
Yeah.
What is your number one piece of advice to your younger self?
Ooh, I would. That's a good one. I think to not be afraid to dive into something you're uncomfortable with,
Mm,
and for me, that would be marketing. Like I said, I built Sunshine Photo Kart and then let it kind of sit there. I did some SEO stuff, minor SEO stuff, but not much. But I've never done any. I can't say I've never done any marketing on it. I've done some things, but to really put a focus or emphasis on it because I was afraid that I didn't understand what it was or what it was going to do or how it was going to work. Was I going to be good at this? And I always fell back into the developer thing and
mm,
just let me just add a new feature. That'll get more sales if I add a new feature. Um, and it does. It gets a few. People. Oh, I buy it now because now it has this. But I would say to dive into something more comfortable and really dive into that marketing and spend more of my time doing that than adding that one feature that one customer asked for.
right.
You know,
What did you put in place to help with accountability to there? Do you set goals for like a certain amount of hours per week on marketing activities, or how do you get yourself to actually do it?
um, I don't have an answer for that one. I'm still learning and trying to figure that out. To
Hmm,
be perfectly blunt, I don't know.
okay.
Right now, it's hopefully by not having as many clients that I now have time to do that stuff. But it's interesting how doing these little things like these podcasts or putting myself out there even on Twitter and just talking about it and realizing that the world isn't going to collapse, my product isn't going to tank, and all this kind of stuff is like, oh, okay, I can try these things. It's okay to do it. Nothing bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's worth the time. So that fear factor is significantly smaller. So now it's like, oh, I need to write some articles. Okay, that's fine. I can do that. There's not this mystery of, am I doing it right? Is this going to be worthwhile? It's like, I don't know. It might not be worthwhile, but let's still give it a shot and see what happens. So,
Yeah. I don't know if you know Laura from Client Portal, Laura Elizabeth,
I do
but
not.
she gave me once like this piece of wisdom that was just so perfect because it was so simple, which is successful people create content. And that was the end of her little piece of wisdom. And I loved it because it's so easy to overcomplicate these things and fixate on like, am I doing it right? But
Mhm.
sometimes if you think about who is it that I need to become to get where I want, it's like the mere act of writing an article, even if it sucks and no one publishes it, that's the kind of
Mhm.
thing you would be doing if you were a real content marketer. So it's like building these skills. So I love this approach that you're talking about here. This is great. Do you have any final thoughts, parting words, questions you think I should have asked but I didn't, or things you wish I had asked that you'd like to share?
Um, I can't think of anything too much off the top of my head, honestly. I just, yeah, I think everyone just needs to find what works for them. Because if you find something that you enjoy doing, you're going to be more successful at it. And that's why I said, like, I'm working on that by moving to products. I enjoy
Mm,
coding. And the funny thing is when I'm doing something I'm more excited about, like coding, I found myself more willing to do things that I'm afraid of doing, like marketing.
mm, that's a
So
good tidbit.
I have that energy, that momentum from doing that positive thing that I like to do. And it flows in over into the marketing stuff, even though I'm not great at it yet. I'm still, trying to figure it out. But as a result, I'm more willing to it, where I didn't hate doing client work. I felt confident that I was good at it,
Yeah.
but it was still at the end of the day, like, client emails. I mean, you roll your eyes and you go, yeah, this isn't what I want to be doing. If
Yeah.
you're doing that, if spending most of your time doing that, you're going to struggle to dive into the things that you don't want to do
Yeah. And it's
when
not going to
most of your time
exactly
is spent.
sound,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, when most of your time is spent doing something you're not excited about, you're not going to be able to dive into things you need to do that you're not excited about.
Yeah. And something I found for myself is that in my own consultancy, it doesn't feel that motivating to do lead generation, for example, as like a freelancer agency owner, if you don't enjoy being a freelancer agency owner, because even if you are so successful, all you're doing is creating more client work and you don't want to do client work. So it's like a
Yeah.
disincentive to actually do the marketing.
Yeah.
Um, all right, cool. So if someone's listening and they're thinking to themselves, ooh, I would really love to have some dope confetti on my site when someone purchases, where would this person go to use and download your plugin?
They can go to wpsunshine.com. It's the best place. There's a couple other little plugins you can check out as well. Some free little utility plugins that I've made, but that's where you'll be able to find everything that I make as I go forward as the brand. And you can also go to conversionbridgewp.com, and that'll get you onto the landing page to talk about that as I'm validating it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then if you wanted, you could reach out to me on Twitter or X or whatever it's called at Derek Ashauer. And let me know if you think, like the conversion bridge is a great idea. You'd want to get it and use it for your clients if you're in that space, or ask me questions, whatever like. I love talking with people in the DMs about, I've had some people reach out to me because I kind of do some kind of, build in public type stuff with what I'm doing with WP Sunshine, and love chatting with people on there and hearing their stories and talking to them about stuff. Yeah, it's fun to communicate
Awesome.
with people.
And how, if I were trying to type in Derek Ashauer into Twitter, how exactly would I spell that?
DEREKASHAUER.
Awesome.
Lots of vowels in there.
Cool. Well, this is great. So WPSunshine.com, Twitter at Derek Ashauer, Ashauer. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here, Derek. And I look forward to following you on Twitter, and I will go to WPSunshine.com. See ya.
Thank you.
So there you have it. What an interesting episode, eh? Certainly, it'll be cool to see how Derek goes as he goes forward and makes this decision between focusing in on the thing he has an audience in, but doesn't have a lot of interest in, versus this other direction where he has more interest, but is totally starting from scratch. It's given me some stuff to think about prioritizing marketing and the time allocation and things like that. So if you want to get links to all of Derek's stuff, you can go to ftcreator.com/episode 2. And that's the number 2, not spelled out, to get links to all of his stuff, add some cool confetti to your site, that sort of thing. So thanks for being here. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a good review, all those sorts of things. It'll help the show get some traction, and it'll help you continue to get good ideas and wisdom, just like you got today. Assuming you got some today. So thanks for being here, and see you in the next one.